The human soldier's secret. The distant planet was dark and cold, its surface cracked and barren. The only light came from the flickering stars in the sky and the faint glow of the alien warship hovering above. The alien girl, her face pale and fearful, crouched behind a pile of broken rocks. Her heart pounded in her chest. She had been running for hours, with no safe place to hide. Her own kind had betrayed her, left her to die on this forsaken planet. She had no allies left, no friends, only enemies closing in on her every moment. She had almost given up hope when she saw him, a human soldier, standing tall and strong in the distance, his rifle aimed at the approaching alien forces. His uniform was dirty, his face covered in grime, but there was something in his eyes, something fierce and determined. He wasn't just another soldier. He was a warrior, a protector, the last person she would ever expect to help her. The alien girl's eyes widened as she watched the human soldier take down one alien after another with precision. He moved swiftly, his actions cold and calculated. She could see that he wasn't afraid. He was a force to be reckoned with, and in that moment, she realized that she had no choice but to trust him. She had no one else. Without thinking, she stood up from her hiding place and ran toward him. The soldier didn't flinch as she approached. He didn't even seem surprised. His eyes remained focused, scanning the area for more enemies. It wasn't until she was close enough that he turned to face her. "You're alive," he said, his voice low and serious. "I thought I was too late." The alien girl opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She couldn't believe it. How was it possible that this human had found her, and more importantly, why was he helping her? She was an enemy. She was one of the aliens who had once fought against humanity. She had been part of the very forces that had caused the destruction of so many human lives. The soldier didn't wait for her to speak. He motioned for her to follow him. "We don't have much time. The enemy will be back soon. Come with me if you want to survive." The alien girl hesitated for a moment, still unsure of what was happening. But her survival instincts kicked in. She had no choice but to follow him. She ran behind the soldier as they moved through the desolate terrain, the sounds of distant explosions echoing in the air. As they ran, the soldier spoke without looking back. "You've probably got a lot of questions, but now is not the time for them. We need to get to my ship. I can explain everything once we're safe." The alien girl didn't know what to say. She didn't even know why she was trusting him. After everything that had happened, after all the lies and betrayals, why was she putting her faith in a human soldier? But as they moved through the barren landscape, with nothing but the endless stars above them, and the constant threat of death behind them, she realized one thing: the soldier was her only chance. They reached the soldier's ship, hidden in a small ravine. It wasn't much, just a small battered shuttle that had seen better days. But to the alien girl, it felt like a sanctuary. The soldier led her inside, and as the door closed behind them, she felt a sense of relief wash over her. For the first time in days, she was safe. The soldier removed his helmet and turned to face her. His eyes were tired, but there was a warmth in them now. He was no longer the cold, emotionless warrior who had saved her life. He was just a man, a human, who had made a choice to help her. "You're wondering why I helped you," the soldier said, as if reading her mind. "You're probably thinking I should have just left you to die, that you're the enemy. I get it. But I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to stop the real enemy. The ones who betrayed both of us." The alien girl's mind raced. She had been betrayed by her own people, but hearing the soldier's words made her realize that maybe there was more to this war than she had been led to believe. Maybe the humans weren't the true enemies. Maybe they were fighting for something bigger than she had ever understood. The soldier sat down at the control panel, his fingers moving over the buttons with practiced ease. "I'm part of a special unit," he continued. "We've been sent to stop a new threat. Something worse than the xanthary. Something that could wipe out all of us. Humans, aliens, everyone. A dangerous alliance. The shuttle hummed steadily as it soared through the darkness of space. The alien girl sat in the co-pilot's seat, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge of the armrest. The soldier, his face tired but focused, controlled the ship with practiced ease. He had explained everything quickly, too quickly for her to process it all. She was still trying to make sense of the world around her. She had been alone for so long. Her people had betrayed her, leaving her stranded on this desolate planet. And now, here she was, on a ship with a human soldier, a soldier who had once been her enemy, a soldier who had just saved her life, and yet she couldn't shake the feeling that she was caught in something much bigger than herself. The soldier glanced over at her, noticing the confusion in her eyes. He didn't say anything at first, but his gaze lingered for a moment. He could tell she was processing a lot, just as he had when he first joined the special unit that brought him here. "You still don't trust me, do you?" The soldier's voice was calm, but there was a hint of understanding in his tone. The alien girl looked at him, her alien features softening. She didn't know how to explain what she was feeling. "I don't trust anyone," she finally said, her voice quiet, but firm. "Not anymore." The soldier nodded slowly. He had expected this response. After everything the alien girl had been through, he couldn't blame her for being cautious. He, too, had been in her shoes once, questioning everything and everyone. It was hard to just trust someone after all the betrayals and lies. "But you'll learn to trust me," he said softly, almost as if he was speaking to himself. The alien girl didn't answer. Instead, she turned her gaze back out of the window, watching the stars blur as the shuttle accelerated deeper into space. She didn't want to think about trust right now. She didn't want to think about anything. She was exhausted, mentally and physically, but there was no time for rest. The soldier had already warned her. The Xanthari weren't just a simple threat anymore. They were preparing something far worse than any weapon they had used in the past. And this time, the fate of both their species was on the line. After a few moments of silence, the soldier broke it again. "I don't think you understand how serious this is," he said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "The Xanthari have an army like no other. They're not just trying to wipe out humanity. They want to control it, and they have the technology to do it. They've already tested it, and now it's up to us to stop them." The alien girl turned to look at him, her eyes narrowing. "What is this weapon you're talking about? Why are you so sure it will work?" The soldier looked at her for a moment, his gaze hardening. He had been waiting for this question. "Because I've seen it," he said. "The Xanthari weapon isn't just a destructive force. It's a weapon that can control entire fleets, control minds. The ones who hold it can command anyone, any army, to do their bidding. Imagine a weapon that could make you obey your enemies without even knowing it. That's what we're dealing with." Her mind raced. It was a weapon unlike anything she had ever imagined. It wasn't just about death or destruction. It was about control. Total, unyielding control. She thought back to her people's betrayal, the way they had abandoned her without a second thought. She knew what it felt like to be used. But this was something much worse. She had to stop it. She had to help him. Her voice was barely a whisper. "How do we stop it?" The soldier's gaze softened slightly as he glanced back at her. "We have to get to their command ship. It's hidden in a remote sector of space. The Xanthari have placed it under heavy guard. But if we get in and disable the weapon, we can stop their plans. We can end this before it's too late." The alien girl's stomach churned at the thought of going into enemy territory, but she didn't hesitate. She knew what needed to be done. She knew what was at stake. "What about your people?" she asked cautiously. "What will they do if they find out you're working with me, the former enemy?" The soldier didn't look at her this time. His eyes were locked on the controls in front of him. "I don't care what they think," he said. "I've seen too many good people die for a cause that wasn't worth it. The truth is, our enemies aren't just the Xanthari. It's everyone who has been willing to let the war continue, to keep fighting and killing. If I have to be branded a traitor to save innocent lives, then so be it. The alien girl was silent for a moment. She had never met anyone like him before. He wasn't just a soldier. He was someone who believed in something bigger than just orders and duty. He believed in saving lives, not destroying them. She was starting to see him as more than just a human. He was an ally, someone who wasn't willing to let the galaxy burn for the sake of power. "We'll do it," she said firmly. "We'll stop the weapon. We'll stop them all." The soldier gave her a small, approving nod. "Good. We'll need all the help we can get." As the shuttle cut through the cold expanse of space, the two unlikely allies shared a moment of silence. It wasn't peace, and it wasn't friendship, but it was something stronger than either of them had felt in a long time. Hope. The weight of their mission pressed down on them both, but for the first time since they'd met, they both knew that they weren't alone in this fight. They were in it together. And together, they would stop the destruction before it was too late. Into enemy territory. The shuttle sliced through the vast emptiness of space, its engines humming steadily, the distant stars flickering like tiny specks of light in the black void. Inside, the alien girl and the human soldier sat in silence, each of them lost in their thoughts. The tension was palpable. They were headed into one of the most dangerous parts of space, a region known for being controlled by the Xanthari, a place where enemies disappeared without a trace. The soldier's fingers hovered over the control panel, making small adjustments to their course. His face was calm, but his eyes betrayed the weight of the decision he had made. There was no turning back now. They were headed into the heart of enemy territory, with no backup and no guarantee of survival. The alien girl could sense his unease, even though he said nothing. "Are you sure about this?" she asked quietly, breaking the silence. Her voice carried a mixture of doubt and determination. She was still grappling with the decision to trust him. But she had to admit, the plan made sense. They had no other option. The soldier glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "We don't have a choice," he replied. "The weapon the Xanthari are building, it's not just a threat to humanity. It's a threat to everyone. If we don't stop it, they'll control the entire galaxy. And once they do, no one will be free." The alien girl nodded. She understood the stakes all too well. The Xanthari had always been ruthless, but this new weapon was different. It was something that could turn the tide of the war in their favor, something far worse than anything she had ever imagined. If the soldier was right, this was the only way to stop it. But still, the thought of infiltrating the Xanthari stronghold sent a chill through her bones. The shuttle flew on, closer to the dark heart of the Xanthari's empire. The soldier activated the stealth system, causing the ship's signature to vanish from the enemy sensors. It was their best chance to get close without being detected, but even that was a risky move. The Xanthari had eyes everywhere. As they approached the Xanthari fleet's outer defenses, the alien girl couldn't help but notice the ship's unnerving stillness. There were no other ships in the area, no patrols. It felt like they were walking into a trap. "Stay sharp," the soldier warned, his voice low and serious. "The Xanthari don't play by the rules. They've likely set up some kind of ambush. Just stick to the plan, and we'll make it through." The alien girl didn't respond, but her hand instinctively moved to the weapon at her side. She hadn't used it in a long time, but she was ready. Whatever came next, she would be ready. The shuttle neared a massive space station, an imposing structure built into the side of a rocky moon. The station was the Xanthari's main base in the region, a place where they coordinated their operations. It was heavily guarded, but the soldier was confident they could slip in undetected. "We're almost there," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You ready?" The alien girl took a deep breath and nodded. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but there was no turning back now. The soldier had trusted her, and she would do the same. They landed the shuttle on a small hidden dock at the edge of the station, far from the main entrances. The hatch hissed open, and the soldier motioned for her to follow him. With their weapons in hand, they stepped out into the cold, dimly lit corridor of the station. The air smelled sterile, like it always did in these types of places. But there was an underlying tension in the air, a feeling that something was wrong. As they moved deeper into the station, the alien girl's senses were on high alert. Every sound, every movement seemed amplified. Her training as a soldier had taught her to remain calm, to stay focused, but the place felt like a ticking time bomb. The walls seemed to close in around them as they navigated the maze-like passages, their footsteps echoing in the silence. "We're getting close," the soldier murmured, checking his map. "The weapon's in a secure facility near the center of the station. We'll have to disable the security systems before we can get in." The alien girl nodded, her mind focused on the mission. They had no time to waste. The Xanthari were likely already aware of their presence, and it was only a matter of time before the station's guards arrived. She couldn't help but wonder if the soldier was underestimating the danger. The Xanthari were ruthless, and they wouldn't hesitate to kill anyone who stood in their way. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. The soldier raised a hand, signaling for her to stop. They ducked into a small alcove, pressing themselves against the cold metal walls. The alien girl's heart raced as she listened. The footsteps grew louder, closer. They were coming. The soldier's eyes met hers. He was calm, his expression unwavering. But she could see the tension in his jaw, the tightness of his grip on his weapon. They were about to be discovered. The alien girl's thoughts raced. They couldn't afford to be caught now. The mission was too important. They had to get inside the facility and stop the weapon before it was too late. She turned to the soldier, her eyes filled with determination. "Let's do this," she said, her voice steady. With a swift motion, the soldier pulled out a small device and activated it. The lights in the corridor flickered, then went out. The station was plunged into darkness. In the shadows, they moved quickly and silently, like ghosts. The guards never saw them coming. The alien girl's heart pounded in her chest, but her focus was sharp. Every step, every movement was calculated. They were so close now, so close to stopping the Xanthari and their deadly weapon. The soldier led the way, his eyes scanning the darkness ahead. They had one shot at this. If they failed, it was all over. But if they succeeded, the door to the central facility was just ahead. The soldier pressed a button on his wrist console, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. They were in, the heart of the Xanthari base, and the weapon that could destroy everything. The countdown had begun, the weapon of control. The air inside the Xanthari station was cold and sterile, the walls of the complex humming softly with the rhythm of alien machinery. Each step that echoed through the silent hallways only seemed to amplify the tension that grew heavier with every passing second. The soldier and the alien girl moved swiftly, shadows blending with the darkness of the corridors. They had only one goal, the weapon. As they reached the end of the hall, a massive reinforced door loomed before them, guarded by heavy security. This was it, the heart of the station. The room beyond housed the weapon they had been tracking, the deadly device capable of controlling not only the Xanthari's army, but the minds of anyone who came into its reach. The soldier crouched beside the door, pressing a small device into the wall. His fingers worked quickly, deftly bypassing the security systems. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead as the timer on his wrist ticked down, each second bringing them closer to discovery. "We don't have much time," he whispered, glancing at the alien girl. "The guards will be here soon." The alien girl's jaw clenched. Her eyes scanned the dimly lit hallway, every sound grating on her nerves. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, her muscles tense, ready for action. This was it, the moment that would determine the fate of not just her people, but the entire galaxy. Failure was not an option. With a soft click, the door to the facility slid open. They both slipped inside, moving as silently as shadows. The room was vast, filled with rows of advanced machinery, monitors flashing with data, and strange symbols that the soldier couldn't begin to decipher. But in the center of the room, on a raised platform, was the weapon. It was unlike anything the soldier had ever seen. Towering over them, a massive glowing orb pulsed with an eerie, otherworldly energy. Tendrils of dark energy writhed around the device, and the air seemed to crackle with the immense power it radiated. He could feel the weight of its presence. This was the source of the Xanthari's plans, the key to their terrifying control over the galaxy. The alien girl stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the weapon. For a moment, her expression softened with a kind of sadness. This device was the reason her people had turned against her, the reason the galaxy was on the brink of destruction. It was a tool of domination, a weapon that could break anyone's will and force them into submission. "We have to destroy it," the soldier said quietly, snapping her out of her thoughts, "before they can activate it." The alien girl nodded, her fists clenching. She didn't need to be told twice. She had seen the horrors that the Xanthari had unleashed in their wake, and she knew the true danger of this weapon. But there was something else, something deeper. The weight of betrayal pressed on her chest. The Xanthari had once been allies to her people. Now they had become the very thing that threatened everything she cared about. She reached out, running her fingers over the smooth surface of the device, tracing the dark lines that wrapped around its core. There was a faint hum, a vibration in the air, as if the weapon itself were alive, sensing their presence. "We need to disable the core," the soldier said, pulling a small handheld device from his belt. "It's the only way to stop it from activating. We won't have much time before the Xanthari realize what we're doing." The alien girl glanced at him, her eyes filled with doubt. "Are you sure this will work? If this thing is as dangerous as you say, what if we just make it worse?" The soldier's gaze was firm. "We don't have a choice. If we don't stop it, they'll use it to control every mind in this galaxy. This is our only chance." The alien girl hesitated for a moment longer, but then she nodded. "Let's do it." The soldier moved to the control panel beside the weapon, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. The alien girl watched him closely, her heart racing as the seconds ticked by. She could hear the distant sounds of footsteps approaching, faint but growing louder. The countdown had already begun. "Done," the soldier said, stepping back from the panel. The weapon's hum shifted, a sudden pulse of energy rushing through the room. The alien girl's breath caught in her throat. The device was reacting, but not in the way they had hoped. The soldier's face paled. I don't understand. The core should be disabled. It's not supposed to." A loud, high-pitched shriek echoed through the chamber. The weapon flickered violently, tendrils of dark energy surging outward. The alien girl staggered back as the room seemed to tremble with the sheer force of the power being unleashed. The hum turned into a roar, and the walls seemed to pulse with a sickening energy. The weapon wasn't just reacting. It was activating. "We need to get out of here now," the soldier shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the exit. But the alien girl stood frozen, staring at the weapon in disbelief. "No, it's not supposed to work this way," she whispered to herself, her mind racing. "This weapon, this is what they wanted. This is how they planned to control everything. But it's—" Before she could finish her thought, the door to the facility slammed open with a deafening crash. Armed guards in black armor stormed into the room, their weapons drawn, eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The soldier didn't hesitate. He pushed the alien girl toward the door and dove behind a console, opening fire as the guards rushed forward. The alien girl instinctively activated her own weapon, the blast firing with precision as she darted to cover. The sound of gunfire reverberated throughout the room, echoing off the walls. "We can't stay here," the soldier shouted, firing again as he moved to the console. "The weapon's about to go off. We need to destroy it now, or we're all dead." They had run out of time. The last stand. The air inside the Xanthari station was thick with tension. The sound of blaster fire echoed through the metallic halls as the human soldier and the alien girl fought their way through the chaos. The security systems were coming to life, and every corner seemed to hide another wave of enemy forces. They couldn't stay here for long. The weapon was still active, and if they didn't destroy it soon, the Xanthari would be able to control the minds of everyone in the galaxy. The alien girl's heart raced as she ducked behind a pillar, narrowly avoiding a blast from one of the Xanthari guards. Her mind was in overdrive. They had to destroy the weapon. But with every passing second, it was becoming harder to focus on the mission. The station was collapsing around them, and their chances of survival were growing slimmer by the minute. "We need to find the core," the soldier shouted over the noise of the gunfire, his voice steady but urgent. "It's the only way to stop the weapon. If we don't destroy it, the entire galaxy is doomed." The alien girl nodded, though her thoughts were clouded with doubt. She had never seen anything like this before. The weapon was far more powerful than they had ever imagined, and the Xanthari were willing to do anything to keep it under their control. They ran down the hall, dodging blaster fire as they moved toward the central chamber where the weapon's core was located. The soldier led the way, his expression determined. He was always calm under pressure, but even he couldn't hide the urgency in his eyes now. The alien girl stayed close behind, her senses heightened. She was ready for anything. She had fought battles on countless worlds, but nothing compared to the danger they faced now. The Xanthari had no mercy. If they were caught, there would be no escape. Finally, they reached the door to the central chamber. It was reinforced with heavy metal, a final line of defense before the weapon's core. The soldier pulled out a small device from his belt and activated it. The door began to slide open, but not fast enough. The distant sounds of more Xanthari guards were growing louder, and the soldier knew they didn't have much time. "Get ready," the soldier muttered. "Once we're inside, we need to find the core and destroy it before it activates completely." The alien girl didn't hesitate. She moved with precision, her weapon at the ready as she followed him into the room. It was massive, filled with more alien machinery than she could count. But at the center of it all was the core, an enormous, glowing sphere of energy. Tendrils of dark power reached out from it, as if it had a life of its own. The soldier moved toward the control panel, quickly scanning the various holographic screens. "It's too late to shut it down manually," he said. "We'll need to overload the core. It's the only way to destroy it." The alien girl's eyes narrowed. "Can you do it in time?" "I have to," the soldier said grimly. "This is our only shot." He started working on the panel, his fingers flying across the interface as he input a series of commands. The alien girl kept watch, her weapon raised. She knew they were running out of time. The Xanthari would be upon them soon, and if they didn't finish what they had started, all would be lost. The core began to hum louder, the energy building rapidly. The soldier cursed under his breath. "It's accelerating. I need more time." "Make it quick," the alien girl urged. "We're not going to last much longer." Suddenly, the door to the chamber slammed open, and a group of heavily armed Xanthari soldiers stormed in. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and their weapons were raised. They were too late. The soldier and the alien girl were already in their sights. "Drop your weapons," one of the Xanthari shouted, his voice cold and commanding. "You cannot stop us." The alien girl's blood ran cold. The Xanthari were here. There was no way out. She could feel the power of the core surging, ready to destroy everything. The stakes had never been higher. But the soldier wasn't intimidated. He stood tall, his eyes steely with resolve. He wasn't going to let them win. Not now. "I don't think you understand," the soldier said, his voice low but unwavering. "We're not here to stop you. We're here to destroy everything you've worked for." Before the Xanthari could react, the soldier pressed the final command on the control panel. A blinding flash of light filled the room, and the energy from the core began to spiral out of control. Sparks flew from the machinery, and the very air seemed to crackle with raw power. "No!" the Xanthari commander shouted, his voice filled with desperation. But it was too late. The core exploded with an earth-shattering roar. The entire facility shook as the energy released in a massive surge, blasting through the walls and sending everything into chaos. The Xanthari soldiers were thrown back by the shockwave, their cries of anguish drowned out by the deafening roar of destruction. The soldier and the alien girl were thrown to the ground, the force of the explosion knocking them off their feet. The air was thick with smoke and debris, and the ground beneath them trembled. But through the haze, they could see the chaos unfolding around them. The weapon was gone. The Xanthari's greatest tool of control was no more. The soldier slowly pushed himself up, his body aching from the blast. He looked over at the alien girl, who was doing the same. Both of them were battered, but alive. And they had succeeded. The weapon was destroyed, and with it, the Xanthari's hope of domination. But their victory was bittersweet. The explosion had triggered the station's self-destruct sequence. They had to escape. Fast. "Let's move," the soldier said, his voice gruff as he helped her to her feet. They didn't have much time left. The countdown had already begun, and the station would be gone in a matter of minutes. The alien girl nodded, and together they ran toward the exit. As they sprinted through the collapsing station, they could hear the distant rumble of explosions behind them. The Xanthari were in disarray, but the fight was far from over. They had won a battle, but the war raged on. And the soldier and the alien girl knew that their fight was just beginning. The escape from destruction. The blast was deafening. The very air seemed to ripple with the force of the explosion, and everything around them was thrown into chaos. The soldier barely managed to stay on his feet, his vision blurring from the shockwave. The alien girl, equally shaken, grabbed his arm and pulled him forward. The station's self-destruct sequence had been triggered. They had mere minutes to escape, or be consumed by the destruction they had set in motion. The once sleek, sterile hallways of the Xanthari station now felt like a maze of twisted metal and crumbling concrete. The walls groaned under the pressure of the explosions, and every step they took seemed to echo in the collapsing facility. The sounds of alarms blared, adding to the chaos, while the temperature in the corridors rose with each passing second. "We need to get to the escape pods," the soldier said through gritted teeth, his eyes scanning the darkened passageways. He was still trying to shake off the dizziness from the blast, but he knew they didn't have time to waste. The alien girl nodded in agreement. She was still processing the fact that they had succeeded. The weapon was destroyed. The Xanthari's plan to control the galaxy had been shattered, but the victory felt hollow. They had no time to celebrate. With each step, the ground beneath them seemed to tremble more violently. The station was crumbling, the explosion having set off a chain reaction in the heart of the complex. The once imposing structure was now falling apart, its systems shutting down, and the countdown to complete annihilation was ticking faster. "Come on," the soldier urged, picking up the pace as the air grew thick with smoke and debris. The heat was unbearable, and the walls of the station were beginning to buckle. Their only hope now was to reach the escape pods in time. The alien girl's mind raced. She could feel the intense pressure building inside her chest, the weight of the situation crashing down on her. They had just destroyed the Xanthari's greatest weapon, but they had also made an enemy of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Would they be able to outrun the consequences? Would they survive this? But there was no time to dwell on those thoughts. There was only one thing that mattered now: survival. They rounded a corner, and the sight before them was both a relief and a new horror. The escape pods were just ahead, but a group of Xanthari soldiers blocked the entrance, their weapons raised and ready. The soldiers' eyes glowed with that same terrifying light, and their bodies seemed to pulse with energy. The alien girl tensed, her hand moving instinctively to her side, where her weapon was holstered. But before she could react, the soldier held up his hand to stop her. "Wait," he said, his voice low and steady. "We need to think this through." The alien girl shot him a questioning look. "Think. They're blocking our only way out. What are we supposed to do?" "We need to make a distraction," the soldier replied, scanning the area around them. His mind was working quickly, calculating their options. They couldn't fight their way through the Xanthari soldiers. Not here, not now. But there was something he could do. Without another word, he sprinted toward a nearby control panel, his fingers flying over the interface. The alien girl watched him, her breath caught in her throat. She knew the risks of taking action like this. If the soldier failed, there would be no escape. The soldier tapped a few commands, and the lights in the hallway flickered before going completely dark. The Xanthari soldiers froze, momentarily disoriented by the sudden loss of vision. The soldier wasted no time. He sprinted back to the alien girl, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the now darkened hallway. "Go," he shouted. With the lights out, the Xanthari were left with nothing but their heightened senses to rely on. The soldier and the alien girl moved quickly and quietly, using the shadows to their advantage. The blaring alarms and the sound of crumbling walls masked their every step, and the Xanthari soldiers were left scrambling to regain control of the situation. They reached the escape pods just as the countdown reached its final seconds. The soldier hacked into the pod's access panel, bypassing the security protocols with ease. The door slid open with a hiss, and they both rushed inside. The alien girl turned to the soldier, her heart still pounding in her chest. "Did we make it? Did we escape?" The soldier didn't answer immediately. He was busy securing the pod and inputting the coordinates for their departure. The sounds of destruction still echoed outside, the rumble of the station's collapse reverberating through the hull of the escape pod. A tense silence stretched between them. The alien girl could feel the weight of everything they had just endured, and the reality of their escape was just beginning to sink in. They had done it. They had destroyed the weapon. They had survived the chaos. The soldier finally looked up, meeting her gaze. His expression was hard to read, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Determination, perhaps, or a glimmer of hope. "We made it," he said quietly. "We've got a long road ahead of us, but we're alive, and we've stopped the Xanthari." The alien girl nodded, though she still felt a pang of uncertainty. The battle may have been won, but the war was far from over. The Xanthari Empire wouldn't give up easily. They had made powerful enemies, and the consequences of their actions would be felt across the galaxy. As the escape pod launched into the void of space, the alien girl stared out of the small viewport. The stars stretched before her, vast, endless, and full of possibilities. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope. They had survived the impossible, but now they would have to fight for a future worth living. A new beginning, a dangerous future. The escape pod cut through the silence of space, its engines purring softly as it drifted away from the dying station. The stars outside seemed endless, yet distant, just like the future that lay before the soldier and the alien girl. Their hands gripped the armrests as the pod glided toward an uncertain horizon. Inside the pod, everything was a blur of movement and dust. The alien girl sat back in her seat, exhausted. The adrenaline of the past hours had drained her. She closed her eyes, but the images of the battle, the destruction, refused to leave her mind. For a moment, she allowed herself to breathe, to let go of the weight pressing on her shoulders. But deep down, she knew the fight wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The soldier remained standing, his hands resting on the console in front of him. He stared at the control panel, his face grim. He hadn't spoken much since they had escaped the station, but his thoughts were clearly elsewhere. The same thoughts that haunted the alien girl. They had just escaped the Xanthari, but what would be the consequences of their actions? "We did it," the alien girl whispered, breaking the silence. The soldier nodded, but there was no joy in his expression. Yes, but at what cost? The reality of what they had done began to settle in. The weapon was destroyed, but the Xanthari Empire was vast, and their reach had only grown stronger in recent years. The destruction of the station would send ripples across the galaxy, ripples that would likely bring the Xanthari's wrath to their doorsteps. "We've made powerful enemies," the soldier added. "Enemies that won't forgive this." The alien girl's gaze hardened. She knew that better than anyone. She had spent her entire life running from the Xanthari, always knowing they were just a step behind her. Now, they were both marked. The Xanthari would hunt them down, and no corner of the galaxy would be safe. But there was something else, a flicker of hope, a glimmer that despite everything, they had done something worth fighting for. They had stopped the Xanthari from gaining control over the galaxy. They had shown that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity could stand strong. "We can't run forever," she said, her voice steady. "We'll need a plan. Allies, we have to fight." The soldier turned to her, his expression softening. He could see the fire in her eyes, the same fire he had seen in so many soldiers before. He understood. She wasn't the type to hide in the shadows. She was a warrior, and a warrior didn't back down. "We'll need more than just a plan," the soldier replied, his tone resolute. "We'll need an army." An uneasy silence fell between them. The soldier's words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. An army. How could they possibly gather enough strength to stand up to the Xanthari? The odds were stacked against them. The Xanthari were everywhere, sophisticated, brutal, and powerful. But there was a spark of defiance in the soldier's eyes. He believed it was possible. And in that belief, the alien girl found something she hadn't realized she was looking for: hope. She stood up and approached the soldier. "Then we find them. We find those who will stand with us." The soldier smiled, a rare expression that didn't quite reach his eyes. But it was a start. They both knew the road ahead would be dangerous, treacherous, even, but they couldn't stop now. The Xanthari had made their move, but humanity was about to make theirs. "Let's begin," the soldier said, turning to the navigation controls. "We need to head to the outer rim. We might find some help there. There's a growing resistance, but they'll need convincing." The alien girl nodded. They had no choice but to seek out the resistance, those scattered, disparate groups that had been fighting against the Xanthari in the shadows. They would need to unite these rebels and form an alliance, one strong enough to take down the Empire once and for all. The soldier keyed in the coordinates, and the pod's engines roared to life. They were leaving the wreckage of the Xanthari station behind. But they weren't leaving behind the fight. It had only just begun. As the pod shot through space, the alien girl looked out the viewport once more. The stars twinkled coldly, the vastness of space stretching out before them. It was a reminder that there were so many unknowns out there, so many dangers yet to face. But in that moment, with the soldier beside her and a renewed sense of purpose swelling inside her, she felt ready. No matter the cost, they would fight. They would keep fighting until they had secured a future, until they had driven the Xanthari from the galaxy. The soldier had risked everything to save her, and now it was her turn to stand with him, to fight for the galaxy and for the freedom of everyone under the Xanthari's control. They may have escaped one battle, but the war was just beginning. The soldier turned to her with a quiet smile. "Ready for the next fight?" The alien girl nodded. "Always."